A stone circle stands silent, far older than the pyramids themselves. Its massive blocks align with a precision that maps the stars, not by chance, but by design. This video uncovers 25 ancient megalithic sites where our ancestors encoded a profound cosmic knowledge into stone, revealing what seems to be a forgotten global language of mathematics and astronomy. By the end, you will see a hidden pattern connecting humanity across continents and millennia, from the windswept plains of Stonehenge to the mountain temples of the Andes. Why would cultures separated by vast oceans build monuments that mirror the same celestial blueprints? What does this shared architectural whisper from our deep past say about us? The answer lies etched in granite and limestone, waiting to be read. What does it mean to find the same message written in stone all over the world? Think of the sky as the first great library of humankind. For a Neolithic farmer, the slow arc of the sun and the shifting phases of the moon were not just beautiful spectacles, they were the most vital data imaginable. Knowing when to plant seeds, when to expect the rains, or when to hold ceremonies that connected the community to the cosmos, these were matters of survival and spiritual harmony. They watched this celestial dance for generations, noting patterns with a patience we can scarcely comprehend today. This relentless, precise observation became the bedrock of their science. And when they decided to build something permanent, they built in the language they knew best, the language of the heavens. They translated the movements of celestial bodies into arrangements of massive, earthbound stones. The word megalith, meaning large stone, is almost too simple for what they achieved. It describes the material but says nothing of the mind behind it. These were not random piles of rock. Each placement was a deliberate act, a point in a grand, three-dimensional equation that married astronomy with geometry and tied both to the very land they held sacred. This leads to a profound question that still echoes through archaeology. When we see the same complex astronomical alignments and geometric principles at sites separated by oceans and thousands of years, what are we witnessing? Is it the brilliant, independent invention of human minds confronting the same puzzles under the same sky? Or does it hint at something more interconnected, a thread of knowledge passed along forgotten routes, perhaps from a culture so ancient its name is lost to time? This mystery is the silent heartbeat within every standing stone. It is the reason we look at a circle of weathered pillars and see not just a monument, but a map, a calendar, and a testament to a forgotten genius. This perception of a cosmic harmony gave their architecture a profound dual purpose. To understand these sites, we must embrace the ancient idea of cosmography, the art of mapping the heavens onto the earth. For these builders, the sky was not a distant spectacle, it was a living blueprint. The solstice sun did not just rise, it entered a specific doorway they had built for it. The equinox moon did not just shine, it illuminated a precise corridor meant to receive its light. They were constructing a mirror, a terrestrial reflection of a celestial order they deeply revered. This mirroring took two brilliant forms, the astronomical and the geometric. The alignments are the most visible signature, from the famous heel stone at Stonehenge catching the midsummer sunrise to the sun gate at Machu Picchu framing the December solstice. These are not rough approximations. They are precise, repeatable sightings, engineered across generations to track the solar and lunar cycles with astonishing accuracy. They served as colossal calendars, marking the agricultural year and sacred festivals with stone certainty. Yet the precision goes far beyond simple alignments. It is woven into the very fabric of the structures through sacred geometry. Researchers have found the proportions of the golden ratio, a mathematical relationship celebrated for its aesthetic harmony, embedded in the layout of temples from Giza to Greece. They have identified the use of pi in the dimensions of circular monuments and right-angled triangles with perfect Pythagorean ratios holding up massive stone walls. This is where the mystery deepens. These are not just pretty shapes, they are fundamental mathematical constants. The builders were applying a deep, perhaps intuitive, understanding of these universal principles long before Pythagoras or Euclid gave them formal names. Why would a culture focused on survival encode such advanced mathematics into a temple? The answer lies in that dual purpose. The practical observatory was also a spiritual gateway. By building the mathematics of the cosmos into their sacred spaces, they believed they could harness its order, its energy, and its power. The geometry was a conduit, a way to stabilize their world by anchoring it to the perfect, eternal rhythms above. So when we measure a solstice alignment or calculate a geometric ratio at these sites, we are reading 2 pages of the same text. One page is a manual of celestial mechanics, a tool for navigating time. The other is a spiritual treatise, a belief that by mirroring the heavens, humanity could touch the divine. This fusion of the empirical and the sacred is the silent language connecting every site on our journey. That single shaft of solstice light through the heel stone is a moment of perfect engineering, captured once a year for over 4,000 years. To call Stonehenge a calendar is true, but it sells the genius of its builders short. This was a Neolithic supercomputer carved from sarsen and bluestone, designed to process the most complex data of its age, the movements of the sun and moon. Its story is not of one grand design, but of a project that evolved over 1,500 years, with each generation adding a new layer of celestial code. The great outer circle of towering trilithons, those iconic arches of stone, frames the sunrise and sunset at the solstices with breathtaking accuracy. But look inside to the smaller horseshoe of stones at the heart of the circle. These align with the moon's most extreme rising and setting points, events that only occur every 18.6 years. This means Stonehenge was tracking a cycle longer than a human generation, a long-term rhythm of the cosmos that required meticulous, patient observation passed down through lifetimes. Then there are the Aubrey holes, 56 mysterious pits just inside the earthwork bank. While their exact use is debated, one compelling theory suggests they formed a sophisticated counting system, a movable calendar of wooden posts that could predict lunar eclipses by tracking the moon's subtle wobble. Think about that for a moment. Without written language, without metal tools, these communities orchestrated the movement of multi-ton stones across miles of landscape to build a machine that could foresee when the moon would turn red in the sky. This was not mere stargazing. It was a profound, sustained effort to harmonize human life with the fundamental pulses of the universe, to find order in the celestial chaos, and to cement that order into the very bedrock of their world. The silent stones of Salisbury Plain are a testament to a civilization that spoke the language of the cosmos fluently and wrote its first great equations in earth and sky. Yet that same celestial language found a very different, yet equally precise, expression far to the south, along the banks of the Nile. The Great Pyramid of Giza stands apart from the rough-hewn circles of northern Europe, a monument of polished limestone and geometric perfection that seems to defy its own age. While often categorized separately, its construction from millions of precisely dressed stone blocks makes it the ultimate megalithic achievement. Its builders were not just stacking rocks, they were performing a feat of geodetic engineering, anchoring their vision to the very form of the planet. The pyramid's 4 sides are aligned to the cardinal points with an accuracy that still baffles engineers, oriented to true north with an error of only about 3/60ths of a degree. This is not merely symbolic, it is a display of surveying knowledge so advanced it would not be matched for millennia. The mathematical encoding continues in its very shape. The ratio of its base perimeter to twice its height gives a figure remarkably close to the mathematical constant pi, suggesting its architects understood this fundamental relationship between a circle's circumference and its diameter, and chose to embed it in a square-based structure. This leads to a staggering hypothesis proposed by some researchers, that the pyramid's chosen location at the intersection of the longest line of longitude and latitude passing over land was intentional. If true, it means the builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of Earth's spherical form, placing their grand monument at a uniquely significant geodetic address. But as with Stonehenge, the purpose transcended the terrestrial. Narrow shafts emanating from the pyramid's inner chambers were not for ventilation but for stargazing. They point directly with laser-like precision to key stars in the constellation of Orion and to the pole star that held the northern sky steady in that distant epoch. Here, the solar calendar of the pharaohs met a stellar theology. The pyramid was a machine designed to capture the soul of a king and launch it toward the eternal stars, while simultaneously mirroring cosmic order on Earth. It was both a tomb and a transmitter, a mountain of stone whispering to the heavens, proving that the ancient drive to map the sky was a global phenomenon, expressed in limestone as clearly as it was in sarsen. The same celestial language spoken in stone at Giza found a different, more intimate voice in the misty green hills of Ireland. Here, in the Boyne Valley, a massive grass-covered mound rises from the earth like a sleeping giant. This is Newgrange, a passage tomb built over 5,000 years ago, older than Stonehenge, older than the pyramids of Egypt. From the outside, it appears as a great, silent hill, a part of the landscape itself. But its secret is held in a small, seemingly insignificant feature above the entrance, a narrow slit of stone called the roof box. This is not a doorway for people, but for light. For the rest of the year, the interior of Newgrange is a place of profound and permanent darkness, a long stone passage leading to a central chamber where the remains of individuals were carefully placed. But for a few precious days around the winter solstice, a transformation occurs. At sunrise, if the sky is clear, a single, narrow beam of golden sunlight pierces that engineered slit. It travels with perfect precision down the 19-meter-long passage, a journey of light through utter darkness, until it reaches the deepest chamber and floods it with a radiant glow for approximately 17 minutes. Then, as silently as it arrived, the light retreats, and the tomb returns to shadow for another year. This event is one of the most breathtaking examples of ancient engineering and intentionality in the world. It was a feat that required not just astronomical knowledge, but a mastery of architecture, of aligning the entire structure to a specific point on the horizon where the sun would only rise on those shortest days. The purpose was deeply symbolic. In the darkest time of the year, when the sun seemed weakest and the world cold, this community built a mechanism to prove the sun's inevitable return. The light penetrating the burial chamber was a powerful symbol of rebirth, of the sun's victory over darkness, and perhaps a promise of renewal for those who rested within. This cosmic event was woven into their very beliefs about what lies beyond. The intricate, swirling spiral carvings that cover the great curbstones surrounding the mound may themselves be a permanent record of solar cycles, of the eternal turning of time. Newgrange stands as a profound statement, a monument where astronomy, architecture, and spirituality fuse into a single, undeniable experience. It tells us that for these ancient people, the cycles of the cosmos were not just observed, they were intimately connected to the deepest human mysteries of life, memory, and what comes after. High in the cloud forests of the Andes, another stone speaks directly to the sun. At the heart of Machu Picchu, perched atop a sacred hill, sits the Intihuatana, a single piece of granite carved with astonishing precision. Its name translates to the hitching post of the sun, and it functioned with the elegant simplicity of a master clockmaker. This was not a passive monument, but an active instrument. The central carved pillar acts as a gnomon, the pointer on a sundial, but this was a sundial designed for moments of perfect equilibrium, on the days of the equinox when day and night are of equal length all across the planet. Something remarkable happens. As the sun crosses the celestial equator, the Intihuatana casts no shadow at all. The pillar itself seems to disappear into the sunlight, a moment of zero shadow that marks the sun's perfect balance in the sky. This was a dramatic, public demonstration of celestial order, a way to physically see and confirm the sun's pivotal position in the cosmic cycle. It anchored their calendar to an observable, repeatable event, dictating the timing of planting, harvest, and sacred ceremonies. Yet the genius of Machu Picchu's design extends far beyond this one stone. The entire city is a lesson in integrated cosmography. Its temples, plazas, and stairways are not randomly placed. They are meticulously oriented toward sacred mountain peaks known as apus, which were considered living deities and sources of spiritual power. The main structures align with the cardinal directions, and key windows frame the rising sun on the solstices. Here, the architecture does not just sit on the land, it converses with it. The natural landscape itself, the soaring peaks, the winding river far below becomes an active component of the celestial design. The mountains were not a backdrop, they were pillars in a temple without walls. This reveals a profound layer of the megalithic mind, where the distinction between the built and the natural world dissolves. The cosmic pattern was not something to be imposed upon the earth, but something to be revealed within it, by carefully choosing a site where the heavens and the earth already spoke the same silent language. Machu Picchu shows us that the sacred geometry could be continent-sized, with human engineering serving as the final, delicate punctuation mark in a sentence written by mountains and stars. This same desire to make the cosmos tangible and dramatic found its ultimate expression far across the Atlantic, in the heart of the Yucatan jungle. At Chichen Itza, the Great Pyramid known as El Castillo stands as a silent monument for most of the year. But on the spring equinox, a transformation occurs that turns architecture into pure theater. As the sun begins to set, a pattern of 7 triangles of light and shadow slowly forms along the northern staircase. These angular shapes cascade down the steps, connecting perfectly with the massive stone serpent heads carved at the base. The effect is breathtaking, a shimmering, undulating body of light that appears to be a great feathered serpent slithering down from the heavens to touch the earth. This is the descent of Kukulcan, the plumed serpent deity who bridged the sky and the underworld. This was no happy accident of design. It required a profound understanding of solar angles, of the precise tilt of the pyramid sides, and of the exact geometry needed to cast that specific shadow pattern on that specific day. The entire structure is a calibrated instrument, engineered to produce a public spectacle that reinforced a sacred story for the entire community to witness. The calendar is encoded into its very steps. Each of the pyramid's 4 sides has 91 steps. When you multiply that by 4, you get 364. Add the single final step of the platform summit, and you have 365, a complete solar year set in stone. This fusion is a masterclass in ancient thought. It merges art, astronomy, architecture, and public ritual into a single, unforgettable moment. The Maya were not just tracking time, they were embodying it, making the abstract pulse of the solar year into a visible, divine visitor that returned with clockwork precision. It was a way of teaching, of governing, and of inspiring awe, proving that cosmic knowledge was not meant to be kept in a temple, but to be performed upon one. From the theatrical descent of Kukulcan, we journey to a place where the entire cosmos was not just depicted, but architecturally incarnated. In the Cambodian jungle, Angkor Wat does not simply occupy space, it defines a universe. As the largest religious monument ever constructed, its scale is almost incomprehensible, but its true genius lies in its intention. This vast complex of stone is a literal, three-dimensional model of the Hindu universe, built according to a sacred blueprint. At its heart, 5 majestic towers rise like stone lotuses. The central, tallest tower represents Mount Meru, the mythical axis of the world, the home of the gods and the pivot around which all creation turns. The surrounding towers are lesser peaks, and the concentric galleries and moats that encircle them are not mere decorations. They are the cosmic oceans and the ring of continents described in ancient Vedic cosmology. To walk through Angkor Wat is to traverse a symbolic universe, moving from the outer realms of mortal existence toward the divine center. This symbolic map is anchored to the real sky with breathtaking precision. The entire complex is oriented toward the west, a direction traditionally associated with Vishnu, the deity to whom the temple is dedicated. This western alignment is not a vague gesture. On the morning of the spring equinox, from a vantage point at the main western entrance, observers witness the sun rise in perfect alignment directly over the apex of the central tower. It is a moment of celestial synchronicity where the physical sun crowns the symbolic home of the gods, merging myth and astronomy in a single, silent event. The builders engineered this alignment across a staggering distance, ensuring their stone cosmology would be reconsecrated by the sun itself each year. Yet the cosmic mapping of Angkor extends far beyond the temple walls. Recent LiDAR technology, which uses lasers to map the ground beneath dense forest canopy, has revealed something astonishing. The sprawling urban metropolis that supported Angkor, an area far larger than the temple complex itself, was laid out according to a vast, precise geometric grid. Researchers analyzing this grid have proposed a stunning correlation, that its major axes and central points align with the stars of the Draco constellation as they would have appeared in the sky at the time of the city's founding. If this interpretation holds, it means the entire city, from its grand temples to its residential blocks and canals, was conceived as a terrestrial mandala mirroring a specific celestial pattern. The implication is profound. This was not just a temple designed for ritual, but an entire civilization engineered as a living, breathing reflection of the cosmos. The line between the city and the stars, between human habitation and sacred order, was intentionally blurred. Angkor Wat stands as perhaps the most ambitious act of cosmography in human history, a statement that the proper role of humanity is to build the heavens on earth, to make our home a mirror of a perfect, eternal design. But the cosmos speaks in more than just solar cycles. Along the wind-swept coast of Brittany in France, a different kind of celestial map is laid out on a scale that defies easy comprehension. Here, the Karnak alignments are not a single monument, but a sprawling, silent army of more than 3,000 standing stones. They march across the landscape in over a dozen parallel rows, some lines stretching for kilometers in near-perfect straight lines. To walk among them is to feel a sense of deliberate, overwhelming order imposed upon the natural world. For a long time, the dominant theory was that these grand avenues were aligned to the sun, perhaps marking solstice sunrises. But in the mid-20th century, an engineer and archaeoastronomer named Alexander Thom proposed a more nuanced and compelling vision. After meticulously surveying hundreds of megalithic sites across Europe, Thom argued that Karnak was not primarily a solar temple, but a gigantic lunar observatory. His detailed measurements suggested the stones were not random markers. Instead, specific stones, particularly those set apart from the main rows or placed on distant horizons, acted as precise foresights. When viewed from designated positions within the alignments, these stones would frame the moon at its most extreme rising and setting points along the horizon. This is the key. The moon does not simply rise and set in the same place each night. Over a complex cycle of 18.6 years, its path along the horizon slowly migrates north and south between two extreme limits. Tracking this subtle, long-term dance requires patience spanning generations. The builders of Karnak, according to this interpretation, engineered a permanent, stone-calibrated instrument to do exactly that. They encoded this slow lunar rhythm into the very bones of the land. The implications are staggering. This was a society capable of large-scale, precise surveying over vast distances. It required a shared, long-term vision and a cultural commitment to a project whose full purpose would only be revealed over decades. Why such a deep focus on the moon? For a coastal people, the moon's phases govern the powerful tides that shaped their daily life, their fishing, and perhaps their travel. Its cycles also offered a different kind of timekeeping, one intertwined with ritual calendars and myths distinct from the solar year. Karnak presents a celestial focus that is more patient, more subtle, and arguably more complex than tracking the sun. It whispers of a culture that listened just as intently to the silvery, shifting light of the night sky, building a testament in granite to its long, slow song. While Karnak tracked the moon's slow dance, a much older mystery lay buried under a Turkish hill for millennia. Göbekli Tepe was not simply older than Stonehenge. It predated it by an almost incomprehensible 6,000 years. This site, built around 11,600 years ago by communities we still classify as hunter-gatherers, shatters every assumption about the origins of civilization. Here, before the invention of pottery, before the wheel, and long before the first seeds of agriculture were sown, people came together to carve and erect massive, multi-ton pillars of limestone. They shaped them into distinctive T-forms and covered them with intricate, breathtaking reliefs of animals, scorpions, birds, and abstract symbols. For decades, archaeology told a simple story that agriculture created surplus, which led to settlement, which then allowed for the spare time and resources to build temples and develop complex astronomy. Göbekli Tepe turns that story completely on its head. The evidence suggests these monumental enclosures were built first, and the society needed to support their construction and ritual use may have been the very pressure that spurred the domestication of plants and animals. In this light, the temple did not come from civilization. It may have been its very cause, but what was the purpose of this colossal, prehistoric effort? The carvings provide a compelling clue. Rather than seeing them as a random menagerie, researchers like Giulio Magli propose they represent a celestial zoo. Each animal could symbolize a constellation, with the T-pillars themselves perhaps representing stylized human figures acting as gatekeepers or ancestors overseeing this stone sky. The architectural layout adds weight to this stellar interpretation. The circular enclosures, each with two central, larger pillars, are not randomly oriented. Analysis suggests they were deliberately aligned toward significant points on the horizon, possibly marking the rising of the bright star Sirius, or the star Deneb in the constellation Cygnus, the Swan. Some researchers have gone further, proposing that the entire arrangement of Göbekli Tepe's multiple enclosures mirrors the pattern of stars in Cygnus as it would have appeared in the sky above that specific hill over 11 millennia ago. If true, this is not just a temple, it is the world's oldest known star map, a permanent record of the night sky etched into the bedrock by people at the very dawn of cultural memory. Göbekli Tepe forces a profound reevaluation. It presents the tantalizing possibility that the human drive to understand and monumentalize the cosmos was not a luxury born from settled farming life, but a primal, foundational impulse. The need to build a home for the gods among the stars may have been the spark that finally convinced us to build a home for ourselves on the Earth. Isolated in the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, Easter Island stands as a monument to human ambition. The silent, imposing Moai statues with their backs perpetually turned to the sea seem to hold a secret gaze fixed inland. For generations, the prevailing wisdom was clear. These colossal figures were ancestors watching over the living communities of the island. But the stone platforms upon which they stand, the sacred Ahu, tell a more complex story. When researchers began to map their orientations, a pattern emerged that transcended the purely ancestral. Many of these Ahu platforms are not randomly placed, they are precisely aligned with significant solar events. Certain platforms face the exact point on the horizon where the sun rises on the equinoxes, those 2 days of perfect global balance. Others appear oriented toward the solstice sunrises or sunsets. This suggests the Moai were not just silent guardians, they were participants in a celestial calendar, their monolithic forms acting as eternal witnesses to the solar cycles that govern planting, harvest, and ceremony on this remote land. The astronomical encoding might even extend to the statues themselves. A fascinating theory examines the large cylindrical stones placed atop some moai, known as Picchu. These red scoria topknots, often described as hats or hair, may have served a dual purpose. Their distinct shape could have functioned as a gnomon, the pointer on a sundial. As the sun moved across the sky, the Picchu would cast a specific, trackable shadow across the statue's head and shoulders, perhaps marking the time of day or even specific solar dates throughout the year. This transforms the Moai from static portraits into dynamic solar instruments. The profound mystery of Easter Island is amplified by its geography. This is one of the most isolated inhabited places on Earth, over 2,000 kilometers from the nearest neighbor. The question this isolation forces upon us is staggering. Did this community, working in complete solitude, independently rediscover the same principles of solstice alignment and shadow geometry that cultures across the globe had found? Or does their precision point to a deeper, older root? The Polynesian ancestors who settled Easter Island were the greatest navigators in human history, crossing thousands of kilometers of open ocean by reading the stars, the waves, and the flight of birds. Their very survival depended on celestial knowledge. It is compelling to consider that the Moai and their Ahu are not an isolated phenomenon, but perhaps the last magnificent echo of a vast Pacific tradition of stone celestial markers. This tradition, used to map the heavens and navigate the seas, could have spanned a now submerged archipelago or a forgotten network of voyaging knowledge. The Moai, then, stand as silent sentinels of a lost celestial science, their stone eyes forever fixed on a horizon that holds both the rising sun and the fading memory of a stellar map that once guided ships across the endless blue. While the Moai stand sentinel on a remote island, another culture was building a chariot for the sun itself. On the eastern coast of India, the Sun Temple of Konark rises from the earth not as a simple shrine, but as a monumental, moving spectacle frozen in stone. Conceived as the celestial chariot of the sun god Surya, its form is its function. 12 pairs of colossal, intricately carved stone wheels 7 meters high flank its sides, representing the 24 hours of the day. Yet these are not merely decorative symbols, they are masterpieces of functional astronomy. Each wheel is a perfectly calibrated sundial. The 8 spokes are not random. Their angles are precisely calculated so that the shadows they cast upon the wheel's carved markings can tell the time of day with remarkable accuracy, down to the minute. The sun itself becomes the temple's sole timekeeper, its light animating the stone mechanism with silent, daily precision. This architectural genius ensures the first rays of the rising sun would stream directly through the temple's main entrance, illuminating the sanctum where the deity's image once stood, a daily reenactment of divine arrival. The entire structure is a profound metaphor, a chariot meant to carry the concept of time itself. Its alignment and design are dictated by Vastu Shastra, the ancient Hindu science of architecture that codifies the relationship between buildings, the cosmos, and human well-being. Here, astronomical principles are not hidden in alignments or ratios. They are the very aesthetic made gloriously visible for every worshipper. The passage of time, often an abstract and relentless force, was transformed into a sacred, observable phenomenon, its rhythm etched in light and shadow upon stone wheels. Konark does not just track the sun, it celebrates its journey, making every hour a chapter in a divine story written across the sky and mirrored in art. Deep beneath the sun-baked islands of Malta lies a different kind of celestial instrument, one that speaks not to the eyes but to the ears and the body itself. The Hypogeum of Hal Saflieni is a labyrinth of chambers and passages carved with stone tools directly into the living limestone over 5,000 years ago. It is a world turned inside out, a sacred space removed from the sky above and plunged into the earth's silent heart. Within this subterranean complex, one small, oval room holds a secret that has echoed through millennia. They call it the Oracle Chamber. Its walls are smooth and curved, and a peculiar niche is carved into the stone at about head height. When a person speaks into this niche in a deep, steady voice, something extraordinary happens. The sound does not fade, it amplifies. It resonates, vibrating through the stone and filling the entire chamber with a rich, booming frequency that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. This is not a random acoustic quirk. The chamber's shape and the properties of the limestone were almost certainly engineered to produce this specific effect. Researchers who have measured the resonance found it vibrates at a frequency close to 110 Hz. This is a profoundly significant number in human neurobiology. Studies have shown that exposure to sound waves around 110 Hz can directly influence brain activity, often shifting the mind into an alpha wave state, a condition associated with deep relaxation, heightened suggestibility, and altered states of awareness. The implications are staggering. This was not merely a tomb or a storage room, it was a carefully tuned ritual instrument. A priest or shaman speaking into that niche could have used their own voice to create a sonic environment that gently guided participants into a different state of consciousness, perhaps for divination, for communion with ancestors, or for spiritual journeys. But the acoustic mystery deepens further. Some researchers, like archaeocaustician Paul de Veru, have proposed an even more cosmic connection. They suggest that the resonant frequencies built into ancient sacred sites like the Hypogeum might not be arbitrary. They could correspond to the natural vibrational pulses of the Earth itself, known as the Schumann resonance, or even to the theoretical orbital resonances of planets. While this remains a compelling hypothesis, the core truth is undeniable. At the Hypogeum, the megalithic builders demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of a new dimension, sound as a tangible sculptural force. They moved beyond aligning stones with light and began shaping space to harness vibration. Here, the cosmic pattern was not just seen, it was felt, a physical resonance in the bones and the mind, suggesting that the ancient science of harmony encompassed the entire human sensorium, weaving together the music of the spheres with the architecture of the sacred. From the resonant chambers of Malta, we emerge into the blinding light of a Peruvian desert, where the canvas is the earth itself. The Nazca lines are perhaps the most enigmatic expression of the megalithic mind, not built upward in stone, but etched by subtraction into the dark desert pavement to reveal the lighter earth beneath. To stand at ground level is to experience a profound disconnect. You see only shallow grooves and faint discoloration in the rock. But from the vantage of a nearby hill, or as we see them today from the air, these lines transform into a breathtaking spectacle. They become immense biomorphs, a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a spider, a monkey with a spiraling tail, all drawn on a scale so vast they can only be comprehended from the heavens. Alongside these figures run hundreds of straight lines, perfect triangles, and trapezoids that stretch for miles across the arid pampa, vanishing over the horizon with geometric certainty. For decades, theories about their purpose have ranged from alien landing strips to elaborate irrigation maps. Yet, a compelling thread of research weaves them back into the familiar pattern of celestial observation. The late astronomer Phyllis Petluga of the Adler Planetarium conducted a meticulous, computer-aided study of the line alignments. Her work suggested that many of the longest straight lines are not randomly oriented. Instead, they point to specific positions on the horizon where the sun, moon, and particularly bright stars would have risen or set during the time the Nazca culture flourished, between 200 BCE and 600 CE. One key celestial target appears to have been the Pleiades star cluster, a significant marker in Andean cosmology associated with the agricultural cycle and the coming of rains. Even the intricate spider glyph may hold a stellar secret. Some researchers propose its distinctive form and leg proportions could be a giant diagram of the constellation Orion, a celestial hunter mirrored in the desert sand. This transforms our understanding of the lines from static images into dynamic ritual infrastructure. The Nazca people may not have needed a bird's-eye view. They experienced the design through participation. They could have walked these long, straight pathways during specific ceremonies, aligned with a solstice sunrise or the heliacal rising of the Pleiades. As they processed, they would have been tracing a celestial pathway on the ground, their physical movement mirroring the journey of a star across the sky. The entire pampa becomes a vast, walkable star chart, where human ritual literally follows the script written in the heavens. The geoglyphs then are not messages for gods in the sky, but instruments for people on the earth, designed to synchronize community life with the cosmic order, turning the desert itself into a sacred mechanism for connecting the terrestrial and the celestial. High on the windswept plateau of the Bighorn Mountains, a circle of stones lies open to the endless sky. This is the Bighorn Medicine Wheel, a structure of profound simplicity and quiet power. Unlike the towering pyramids or dense jungles of other sites, its genius is one of elegant minimalism, a perfect demonstration of how deep astronomical knowledge can be encoded with little more than carefully placed rocks on a high alpine plain. At its heart is a central cairn, a pile of stones from which 28 spokes radiate outward like the rays of the sun, connecting to a large outer stone circle. Around this perimeter, 6 additional cairns are positioned at irregular intervals. To the untrained eye, it might appear as a simple ceremonial site, but its true purpose is written in the alignment of those cairns with the distant horizon. One cairn points precisely to the spot where the sun rises on the summer solstice. Another, directly opposite, marks the solstice sunset. Yet others align with the dawn rising of 3 brilliant stars, Aldebaran, Rigel, and Sirius, as they would have appeared centuries ago. These were not random choices. For the Plains tribes, including the Crow, Shoshone, and Lakota peoples who used and revered this wheel, these celestial events were the clockwork of their world. The summer solstice marked the peak of the warm season, a time for major gatherings and ceremonies. The heliacal rising of Sirius just before dawn coincided with the hottest part of the year. Most vitally, the dawn appearance of Aldebaran, the red eye of the constellation Taurus, served as a critical signal. Its rising just before the sun in late spring told the people it was time to begin the summer buffalo hunt, an event upon which their survival depended. This stone wheel was their annual planner, their agricultural almanac, and their ritual calendar, all built into the mountain itself. It stands as a powerful testament that sophisticated archaeoastronomy was never the exclusive domain of so-called civilized, settled monument builders. Here was a culture often described as nomadic, living in profound harmony with a demanding environment, yet they possessed and applied a precise, long-term understanding of the stars that guided their most crucial decisions. They did not need quarried blocks or carved temples. They used the landscape as their foundation and the horizon as their ruler, proving that the drive to map the cosmos is a universal thread in the human story, woven as skillfully into a stone circle on a Wyoming peak as it was into the polished limestone of Giza. The sun's annual journey was not just observed, it was choreographed into the very architecture of the state. At the immense temple of Karnak, dedicated to the supreme god Amen-Ra, the main axis is a celestial runway stretching over 200 meters from the first towering pylon gate to the deepest, most sacred sanctuary. This was not merely a grand processional route for priests and pharaohs. It was a carefully engineered light corridor designed for one specific, dramatic moment each year. On the dawn of the winter solstice, the lowest point of the sun's annual arc, a beam of sunlight would pierce the temple's main entrance. It would travel down the columned hall, the hypostyle hall, passing through a series of progressively smaller and more exclusive doorways, each frame acting like a lens, focusing the light deeper into the Holy of Holies. Finally, after its long journey through shadow and stone, the light would reach the cult statue of Amen-Ra in the central sanctuary, illuminating the god in his most intimate chamber. This was solar theater of the highest order, a public demonstration of divine favor made manifest through architecture. The timing was everything. This solstice event likely coincided with the Opet festival, one of ancient Egypt's most important celebrations. During Opet, the cult statues of Amen-Ra, his consort Mut, and their son Khonsu were carried in a grand procession from Karnak to the temple at Luxor. This journey symbolized the sacred marriage that renewed the pharaoh's divine right to rule, and by extension, the fertility and stability of the entire kingdom. The solstice light show at Karnak was the cosmic prelude to this earthly ritual. As the sun reached its nadir and began its rebirth, so too was the pharaoh's power ritually renewed, the god literally illuminated in his home, affirming the bond between heaven and the throne. The precision required for this effect is staggering. The builders had to calculate not just the horizontal alignment toward the solstice sunrise, but also the vertical dimensions of every doorway and hall to ensure the low winter sun, at its specific altitude, could travel the entire distance without obstruction. This was a feat of long-term architectural planning that likely spanned generations, a permanent celestial mechanism built into the heart of religious statecraft. It shows us that for the Egyptians, cosmic alignment was not an abstract spiritual concept. It was the foundational pillar of social and divine order, a visible promise that as long as the sun kept its appointment with the temple, the kingdom would endure. Yet even the most precise stone calendar required a stable foundation, a point of reference in a seemingly shifting world. The Mnajdra temples on Malta provide exactly that, a solar instrument carved from the island's golden coralline limestone. Built over 5,000 years ago, these structures are not a single temple but a complex of three connected buildings, their forms echoing the rounded, organic shapes of the landscape. Their genius lies not in towering height, but in a quiet, meticulous intimacy with the sun's path. Here, the architecture itself becomes a finely tuned receiver of light. The main doorway of the lower temple is not simply an entrance, it is a calibrated aperture. On the mornings of the spring and autumn equinoxes, when day and night are of equal length, the rising sun aligns perfectly with this stone threshold. A beam of light penetrates the doorway, travels across the darkened interior, and lands with exacting precision upon a specific central stone slab. This is not a vague wash of illumination, but a sharp, defined rectangle of light, a solar spotlight marking the moment of global balance. The builders achieved this clarity by carefully selecting and shaping the local limestone, using its natural properties to create clean, crisp edges for the light to interact with. But the calendar does not end there. The same temple incorporates alignments for the solstices, the turning points of the year. During the summer solstice, the sun's first rays illuminate the outer edge of a large megalith to the left of the central doorway. 6 months later, at the winter solstice, the dawn sun instead lights the corresponding edge of a slab on the right. This creates a physical, stone-bound bracket for the sun's entire yearly journey. As the sun moves north and south along the horizon between these extremes, the point of light inside the temple migrates accordingly, a slow-moving dot of gold charting the seasons against the ancient floor. What we see at Mnajdra is a complete, integrated system. It tracks not just one event but the full solar cycle from one extreme to the other and through the balanced center. This transforms the temple from a passive place of ritual into an active, dynamic timepiece. It functioned as a communal calendar, signaling the times for planting and harvest, for ceremonies of renewal or remembrance. For a small island society in the middle of the Mediterranean, understanding these cycles was not abstract astronomy. It was essential for survival and social cohesion. The Mnajdra temples stand as a powerful reminder that the drive to monumentalize cosmic time was not reserved for empires with vast resources. It was a fundamental human impulse pursued with equal sophistication and reverence by a community on a modest island who turned their very place of worship into a faithful stone record of the sun's eternal promise. The builders of Mnajdra used their temple as a precise solar bracket, but another culture sought to capture the full celestial conversation in a single, breathtakingly perfect form. On a narrow strip of land between two dark lochs in Scotland's Orkney Islands, the Ring of Brodgar stands as a statement of geometric purity. Encircled by a deep, water-filled ditch, its 27 remaining stones of an original 60 form a near-perfect circle against the dramatic sky. This is not the rough approximation of a hurried people, but the deliberate work of minds obsessed with precision, a circle drawn on the land with stones weighing tons. Its location is the first clue to its deeper purpose. Placed on this slender isthmus, the circle is framed by water on two sides, creating a liminal space, a bridge between worlds that feels neither fully of the land nor the sea. This intentional positioning in a threshold landscape suggests the ring itself was a threshold of another kind, a gateway between the earthly and the celestial. The stones themselves hold the key, while several align with the winter solstice sunset, marking the solar year's darkest turn. Others point with quiet certainty to the southernmost rising point of the moon. This dual alignment is profound. The solar cycle, with its solstices and equinoxes, governs the rhythm of the seasons of light and growth. The lunar cycle, with its phases and more complex 18.6-year nodal cycle, governs a different kind of time, one of tides, rituals, and perhaps a more mysterious, intuitive calendar. The Ring of Brodgar appears designed to reconcile these two great celestial clocks in one monument. It was an architectural attempt to harmonize the sun's reliable journey with the moon's more elusive dance, to find a point of unity in the sky's two most dominant voices. But Brodgar was never meant to be understood in isolation. It is the brilliant centerpiece of a vast, open-air cathedral known as the heart of Neolithic Orkney. Within a short walk, the solitary comet stone stands sentinel, and the massive burial mound of Micho lies waiting. Micho itself is a masterpiece of solar alignment, its long entrance passage designed to channel the last light of the winter solstice sunset deep into its central chamber, illuminating the back wall in a golden blaze. This means that as the solstice sun set in alignment with Brodgar's stones, its final rays would also be traveling down Micho's passage. The entire landscape becomes an integrated instrument. Individual standing stones act as foresights, burial mounds mark specific solar events, and the Great Circle at Brodgar serves as the grand unifying node. Together, they transform the Orcadian Peninsula into a three-dimensional map, a ritual complex where every hill, stone, and alignment worked in concert to plot the movements of the cosmos onto the very terrain of daily life. This was not just stargazing, it was world-building, an act of defining their place in the universe by meticulously tracing its patterns onto the earth beneath their feet. This staggering scale of cosmological planning finds its ultimate urban expression in a place whose very name means the city of the gods. Teotihuacan, the vast metropolis that dominated ancient central Mexico, is not a collection of separate temples. It is a single, unified machine for processing cosmic order, and its main artery is the breathtaking Avenue of the Dead. Stretching for over 2 kilometers, this grand thoroughfare is not aligned to the cardinal directions like so many other sites. Instead, it is deliberately skewed 15.5 degrees east of true north. This was not an error or a compromise with the landscape, it was a deliberate pointer. Researchers believe this specific angle aligns the avenue with the setting point of the Pleiades star cluster on the horizon, as it would have appeared at the zenith of its cycle around the year 150 CE, when the city was at its peak. The Pleiades, known as the Seven Sisters, held immense significance across Mesoamerica. Their first pre-dawn appearance, known as the Heliacal Rising, was a critical marker in the agricultural calendar, signaling the time to prepare the fields for the coming rains. By orienting their entire city to this celestial event, the Teotihuacanos were anchoring their urban heartbeat to the rhythm of the cosmos and the cycle of life itself. The avenue was far more than a ceremonial path. It was a terrestrial echo of a celestial event, a permanent stone arrow aimed at the stars. Along this cosmic axis, the city's two most monumental structures stand as deliberate anchors. The Pyramid of the Sun, one of the largest pyramids in the world, and the slightly smaller but elegantly proportioned Pyramid of the Moon are not randomly placed. They are positioned at key points along the Avenue of the Dead, creating a powerful visual and symbolic progression from the solar to the lunar, from the masculine to the feminine, embodying the complementary dualities central to Mesoamerican thought. At the southern end of the avenue lies the Ciudadela, a vast sunken plaza containing the Temple of the Feathered Serpent. Here, another precise alignment comes into play. On the spring and autumn equinoxes, the sun sets directly behind the temple's pyramid, a dramatic public display of solar balance engineered into the city's core geometry. Yet the most staggering hypothesis about Teotihuacan's design transcends alignments and enters the realm of pure cosmic modeling. Some researchers, analyzing the distances between the city's major pyramids, have proposed that the entire urban grid is a scaled model of our solar system. In this theory, the positions of the Pyramid of the Sun, the Pyramid of the Moon, and the Temple of the Feathered Serpent correspond proportionally to the orbital distances of the planets from our Sun. If this interpretation holds true, it suggests the builders of Teotihuacan were not just marking single stars or solar events. They were attempting to capture the entire architecture of their known cosmos in stone and plaster, building a 1-to-1 scale map of the heavens on the valley floor. This would represent a conceptual leap of almost unimaginable ambition, transforming a thriving city of over 100,000 people into a living, breathing model of universal order. Whether this specific solar system model is confirmed or not, the overwhelming evidence shows that every street, every platform, and every pyramid in Teotihuacan was conceived as part of a grand, integrated cosmogram. The city itself was the ultimate megalith, a machine built not for one king or one ritual, but to harmonize an entire civilization with the perfect, mathematical music of the spheres. The stone avenues of Callanish stretch across the Isle of Lewis like the arms of a vast, petrified cross. This cruciform shape, a central circle with lines of standing stones radiating north, south, east, and west, is unique in the megalithic world. It feels deliberate, like a symbol etched into the peat and rock of the Hebridean landscape. While the sun plays its part here, with the stone rows framing the equinox sunrises and sunsets, the true master of Callanish is the moon and its most patient 18.6-year cycle. The longest avenue, stretching northward, is not aimed at any distant mountain or sunrise. Instead, it points with silent intent to a very specific, low point on the southern horizon. Once every 18.6 years, when the moon reaches the extreme southern limit of its long, slow dance, it rises in that precise notch. From the perspective of the central circle, the moon does not soar into the sky. It seems to hesitate, skimming the dark line of the land, its pale light gliding and bouncing between the dark pillars of the northern avenue as if the stones were guiding its path. This event, a lunar performance staged over a generation, transforms the static monument into a dynamic celestial theater. The builders encoded a rhythm longer than a single human lifetime into the land, demanding that knowledge be preserved and passed down with meticulous care. Yet the story of Callanish did not end with its Neolithic architects. Centuries later, new people arrived with new stories. Celtic myths grew around the stones, speaking of giants turned to stone for refusing to convert to Christianity, or of a procession of petrified monks. The site became known in local tradition as Fir Braig, the false men. This layering of meaning is a profound reminder. These places were never abandoned. Their power persisted, their stark beauty and mysterious alignments inviting reinterpretation across millennia. The original astronomical clockwork, though perhaps not fully understood by later generations, continued to anchor the site to the numinous, serving evolving spiritual needs. Callanish stands as a palimpsest, where lunar mathematics written in stone slowly faded beneath new legends. Yet the moon itself never forgot its appointment, returning every 18.6 years to dance between the silent, watching stones. Gold was not merely decoration for the Inca, it was the sweat of the sun solidified. In the heart of their capital, Cusco, they built a temple to house this divine essence, the Correspondences, or golden enclosure. This was the spiritual and cosmological axis of the entire empire, a place where architecture and astronomy fused into a single instrument of state. Its walls, now bare stone, were once entirely sheathed in plates of beaten gold that would have blazed in the high-altitude sun, a man-made star at the center of their world. But the true genius of the Correspondences was not in its lavish sheathing, but in its precise trapezoidal geometry. Every window, every niche, every doorway was a carefully calculated aperture. On specific, significant days of the solar calendar, such as the solstices or equinoxes, beams of sunlight would penetrate these openings to strike predetermined targets within the temple's shadowed interior. They might illuminate a specific gold ornament, a sacred idol, or a particular marked stone on the floor. This was solar ritual as exact science, a public demonstration that the sun god Inti was actively communicating with his children, his light dictating the sacred schedule of the empire from its very core. Yet the Correspondences' role extended far beyond its own walls. It was the central hub of a vast, invisible web that organized all of Inca society. From this temple, 41 straight lines called secs radiated outward like spokes on a wheel. These were not physical roads but conceptual sight lines surveyed across the dramatic Andean landscape. Each sec connected the Correspondences to hundreds of huacas, or sacred shrines, which could be a spring, a distinctive rock formation, a mountain peak, or a built altar. This system created a staggering cosmological map etched across the territory of Tahuantinsuyu, the land of the four quarters. The secs functioned as a complex social and ritual calendar. Different lineages within Inca society were responsible for maintaining and making offerings at specific huacas along specific sec lines on specific days of the year. The entire cycle ensured that every sacred site was attended to, weaving the passage of time, the social duties of the people, and the sacred geography of the empire into one seamless whole. The sun's journey was thus not just observed, it was administrated. This transforms our understanding of cosmic patterning. At Cusco, it was not merely a spiritual pursuit or an agricultural tool. It became the literal backbone of civilization, the operating system for a vast, multi-ethnic empire. The alignment of a temple window with a solstice sunrise was directly linked to the duties of a farmer on a distant hillside, all connected by those invisible lines of sight. The heavens provided the immutable framework, and the Incas built their entire world, from ritual to tax collection, within its golden, precisely measured confines. Beneath the waves off Japan's westernmost island lies a mystery that could rewrite our entire timeline. The Yonaguni Monument emerges from the deep seafloor, a series of massive, geometric terraces, flat platforms, and sharp, 90-degree angles that look eerily like a sunken city. Its sheer walls drop down over 25 meters, featuring what appear to be staircases, carved pillars, and even a triangular archway. The debate has raged since its discovery, with some geologists pointing to the area's unique sandstone, which can fracture into surprisingly regular blocks through natural tectonic forces. Yet the sheer concentration of these right-angled formations in one location, alongside what look like tool marks and carved channels, leads other researchers to a staggering conclusion. If these structures are not a freak of nature but were shaped by human hands, their implications are profound. Analysis suggests the main terrace is aligned closely to magnetic north, a deliberate orientation we see in countless terrestrial monuments. Even more compelling, certain faces and edges of the rock appear to be positioned to catch the sunrise on the solstices, turning the submerged platform into a potential astronomical marker. The true revolution, however, lies in its depth. Current sea level science indicates this area was last above water around 10,000 years ago, at the end of the last ice age. If this is a built site, it predates the pyramids by a staggering 5,000 years and rivals the age of Göbekli Tepe. This single thought opens a chasm in our understanding. We have been searching for the roots of civilization on the land we see today. But what if the most important chapters are not lost to time, but to the sea? The Yonaguni Monument forces us to confront a haunting possibility. The coastlines of our world looked drastically different 12,000 years ago. Vast fertile plains now lie hundreds of feet underwater. How many other Yonagunis are out there, silent and submerged, holding the lost astronomical codes of cultures we have never named? This is not necessarily evidence of a single, globe-spanning prehistoric civilization, though some have proposed it. It could be something equally profound, a testament to a shared cognitive awakening. As the ice retreated and seas rose, disparate human communities, facing a changing world, may have independently reached for the same solution, using the eternal stars as their guide and stone as their language. Whether natural or artificial, Yonaguni stands as a powerful symbol, a reminder that the map of our ancient past is still incomplete, and its most telling landmarks may be waiting in the silent, sunless deep. Carved into the rolling green hills of Oxfordshire, the Uffington White Horse is a different kind of celestial signature. This is not a structure you walk within, but an image you walk upon, a colossal figure over 100 meters long, formed from deep trenches cut into the hillside and packed with gleaming white chalk. For 3,000 years, this stylized horse has galloped across the landscape, its flowing lines visible for miles. Its true form, however, is only fully revealed from the air, a perspective its creators never had. This presents an immediate mystery. Why would a community invest immense labor to create a monumental image they could never see in its entirety? The answer lies not in the view from above, but in the precise relationship between the figure, the land, and the sky. The horse is not placed randomly. Its location on the steep slope of Whitehorse Hill was a deliberate choice of celestial theater. A specific ancient mound known as Dragon Hill sits directly below the figure. If you stand on this mound and look up at the horse on the morning of the summer solstice, a remarkable alignment occurs. The first rays of the rising sun, cresting the distant horizon, strike the hill in such a way that they appear to ignite the horse's eye, making the chalk gleam with an ethereal, focused light. This transforms the entire hillside into a solar receiver, with the horse acting as a divine symbol awakened by the year's most powerful sunrise. but the astronomical symbolism may run even deeper. The horse's unique, abstract form, with its elongated body and distinctive, beak-like head, does not resemble a typical horse. Some researchers have proposed a compelling alternative, that the figure is not a horse at all, but a stylized representation of a dragon. This theory connects the hill's name, Dragon Hill, with the celestial pattern it may mirror. The constellation Draco, the dragon, coils around the northern celestial pole. In the era when the figure was created, the star Thuban in Draco's tail was the pole star, the immovable pivot of the heavens. The Uffington figure, with its serpentine body and guarding position on the hill, could be a terrestrial map of this celestial guardian, eternally watching over the axis of the sky. This site represents a breathtaking fusion of mediums. It is a geoglyph like Nazca, but in a northern climate, using chalk instead of desert pavement. It is an artistic statement, but one dictated by solar geometry. The builders took the very skin of the land and scarred it with a symbol that served multiple purposes: a communal emblem, a ritual site for solstice ceremonies, and a permanent reminder that their world was watched over by a power both in the earth and in the stars. The white horse shows us that cosmic mapping could be as fluid as a line drawn on a hill, a sweeping, artistic gesture that bound identity, ritual, and astronomy into a single, unforgettable mark upon the world. While the Uffington horse uses an entire hillside as its canvas, another site reduces cosmic observation to its most essential tool, a simple hole in a stone. In the highlands of Armenia, a plateau is scattered with hundreds of upright basalt stones, many weathered into jagged, surreal shapes. This is Zorat's Kera, often called the Armenian Stonehenge, though its purpose feels more direct, more like a workshop for the sky. Among the stones, a distinctive feature catches the eye. Dozens of them have smooth, cylindrical holes bored straight through their upper sections. These are not natural formations or later damage, they are deliberate, crafted apertures. When you look through one of these holes, you are not gazing at a random patch of landscape. You are peering down a stone telescope aimed at a precise coordinate on the distant horizon. Each hole is a dedicated sighting tube, engineered to frame the rising or setting point of a specific celestial body, whether it be the solstice sun, the equinox moon, or a particularly bright star like Vega or Altair. This transforms the entire field from a ceremonial circle into a vast, open-air observatory. The contrast with other sites is striking. At Stonehenge, you stand within an architecture that frames the sky. At Zorat's Kera, you pick up a tool, you put your eye to a stone, and you take a measurement. It feels less like participating in a ritual and more like reading a dial. This practical, almost scientific methodology reveals a different facet of the megalithic mind, one focused intently on the mechanics of observation itself. The builders here were not just marking where the sun rose, they were creating a permanent, error-proof recording device. A priest or astronomer could return year after year, generation after generation, place their eye at the same carved station, and confirm that the sun still touched the same notch on the faraway ridge. It was a way of guaranteeing the continuity of knowledge, of removing doubt from the equation. The holes themselves are a kind of frozen data, a physical library of celestial coordinates that required no interpretation beyond alignment. This site speaks to a universal human impulse, the drive to not only witness the cosmos but to quantify it, to pin down its movements with tangible, reproducible precision. In the silent, wind-swept field of Zorat's Kera, we see the earliest roots of the scientific instrument, a testament to the moment our ancestors stopped just watching the sky and began to truly measure it. The carved stone telescopes of Zorat's Kera aimed to measure the sky with mechanical precision, but another culture chose to paint the entire heavens on a ceiling. Deep within the temple of Hathor at Dendera, the darkness of an inner sanctuary is held aloft by a masterpiece of stone. This is the Dendera zodiac, a sprawling, circular bas-relief carved not in the age of the pharaohs who built the pyramids but centuries later under Greco-Roman rule. At first glance, it seems a world apart from the silent, open-air rings of Brodgar or Karnak. Here, the cosmos is not implied by alignment, but illustrated in breathtaking mythological detail. The familiar figures of the zodiac, a ram, a bull, twins, a crab, are all present, but they swim amidst Egyptian constellations, with the sky goddess Nut arching over the whole scene, and planets shown as gods holding staffs. This magnificent disk is a celestial archive, a snapshot of the night sky as it appeared around 50 BCE. Its true genius, however, lies in what that snapshot preserves, the slow, majestic drift of the stars themselves. This drift, called precession, is caused by a slight wobble in Earth's rotation, a cycle that takes 26,000 years to complete. It means the position of the equinoxes against the backdrop of stars shifts by 1 degree every 72 years, a change virtually imperceptible across a human lifetime. Yet the Dendera zodiac captures this shift. The arrangement of its constellations does not match the sky of the pyramid builders 2,000 years prior, nor does it match our sky today. It is a frozen moment in a grand celestial clock, proving its creators were not just mapping the stars, but tracking their long-term migration. This represents a staggering continuity of observation. It suggests the temple priests had access to astronomical records stretching back centuries, perhaps millennia, allowing them to compare their contemporary sky with the records of their ancestors and note the subtle difference. The temple itself is oriented to this living sky. Its axis aligns with the rising of the star Sirius, whose heliacal rising signaled the critical annual flooding of the Nile, and its walls are covered with reliefs showing the cycles of the moon and the journeys of the sun god through the hours of the night. Dendera is a bridge in stone. It connects the primal architectural language of the megaliths, where the building itself was the instrument, to a new era of complex iconography and myth. The earlier impulse to mirror the cosmos did not vanish, it evolved. At Dendera, the knowledge was no longer locked in the silent relationship between a doorway and a sunrise. It was translated into a rich symbolic language, a storybook of the stars meant to be read by priests and understood by the people. This artistic translation served a vital purpose. It preserved sophisticated astronomical data within the sacred and enduring context of religion, ensuring this hard-won cosmic understanding would be copied, revered, and passed down through generations long after the original methods of observation might have been forgotten. The ceiling at Dendera is more than a beautiful map. It is a testament to the human desire to not only observe the universe, but to tell its story, to weave our understanding into the very fabric of our culture so that it might survive the turning of the ages. The artistry of Dendera's star chart speaks of a long tradition, but its roots stretch back to a far simpler, more fundamental beginning. In a quiet German field, a pattern only visible from the air tells the story of that first crucial step. The Göbekli circle is not made of stone, but of earth and wood, a Neolithic enclosure built nearly 7,000 years ago. Its form is elegantly simple, a circular ditch and bank with 2 concentric rings of wooden posts inside. Yet its simplicity is its genius. This structure, discovered by archaeologists analyzing aerial photographs, holds the distinction of being the oldest confirmed solar observatory in the world. Its design is a masterclass in focused intention. The wooden palisade featured 3 gates, 1 to the north and 2 to the south. These southern gates are not placed randomly. They are narrow, precise apertures. On the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, a person standing at the exact center of the circle would witness a breathtaking alignment. The rising sun would appear directly through the southeast gate, and hours later, the setting sun would vanish through the southwest gate. The entire precious arc of the solstice sun was framed by this wooden architecture. This was not a monument for the ages in granite. It was a functional instrument in oak and earth, built by some of Europe's earliest farming communities just as they were transitioning to settled life. Its age is profoundly significant. Göbekli predates Stonehenge by over 2,000 years and the pyramids of Egypt by more than 2 millennia. This tells us something essential. The drive to monumentalize the solar cycle, to physically mark those pivotal turning points of the year, did not emerge after centuries of civilization. It appeared at the very dawn of agricultural society. For these early farmers, knowing the precise moment of the winter solstice was not abstract astronomy, it was a matter of survival and hope. It marked the sun's rebirth, the promise that the light would return, the days would lengthen, and the cycle of growth would begin anew. Göbekli provided that certainty. It transformed an anxious watch on the horizon into a communal, verifiable event. The entire community could gather in the circle and witness the proof in the alignment, reinforcing social bonds and shared belief. In its elegant wooden form, we see the pure prototype. All the later complexity, the massive stones, the lunar calculations, the geometric encoding, began with this basic, powerful need to bracket the sun's journey and anchor human time to the cosmos. The Göbekli circle is the first clear sentence in a very long story, a sentence written not in ink or stone, but in aligned posts and the unwavering path of light. But of all the stones that speak of the cosmos, some remain utterly silent, their purpose lost to time. In the Bekaa Valley of Lebanon, the ruins of the Roman temple of Jupiter at Baalbek stand atop a mystery that dwarfs them. The Romans, master builders in their own right, constructed their grand temple upon a pre-existing platform of such impossible scale that it defies all explanation. This foundation contains the 3 largest cut stones ever used by human hands, known as the trilithon. Each of these monstrous blocks is estimated to weigh over 800 tons. To put that into perspective, that is the weight of 2 fully loaded Boeing 747 jumbo jets, carved with near-perfect edges, lifted over 20 feet, and fitted together with a precision that leaves no room for a blade between them. The Romans themselves did not place these stones. They found them there already in position from a civilization so ancient that even the Romans had forgotten its name. The engineering required is so far beyond the known capabilities of any Bronze Age culture that it stands as an open challenge to our historical timeline. The Roman temple above has its own clear astronomical alignments, but the original platform, this gargantuan foundation, holds its secrets close. Its purpose is utterly obscure. Was it the base of a temple so vast it was never completed? Was it a landing platform, a fortress, or something else entirely? Some researchers, looking past the Roman additions, have measured the platform's core dimensions and proposed that its proportions encode familiar mathematical constants like pi or the golden ratio, suggesting a design language consistent with other megalithic sites. Others have looked to the stars, searching for alignments in its orientation that might point to specific constellations or solstice events from a far earlier epoch. Yet the evidence remains fragmentary, the whispers of a code we cannot quite hear. Baalbek represents the ultimate enigma in our journey. It is not a site that clearly maps a solstice or tracks the moon. Instead, it is a statement of pure, incomprehensible capability. It forces a humbling question upon us. What if the cosmic patterns we have traced so carefully are only the surviving fragments of a much older, much grander science? What if sites like Stonehenge and Giza are not the origin points, but the echoes, the later attempts by new cultures to understand and replicate a technology and a cosmology left behind by the builders of places like Baalbek? The 3 silent stones of the trilithon do not give us answers. They only ask, with the immense weight of their presence, how much of the ancient sky we have truly learned to read. The silent stones of Baalbek ask the final, most profound question of all. Having journeyed from the green hills of Ireland to the deserts of Peru, from submerged Japanese coasts to the high plains of Wyoming, a clear and undeniable pattern now emerges from the noise of millennia. Cultures that never met, separated by vast oceans and thousands of years, were all speaking variations of the same silent language. They were all building in dialogue with the cosmos, using the same fundamental vocabulary. The evidence is written in alignments and encoded in geometry. From the solstice sunrise at Stonehenge to the equinox light at Mnajdra, from the lunar extremes tracked at Karnak and Kallanish to the Pleiades rising over Teotihuacan, the same celestial events were being marked with meticulous care. This was not random stargazing. It was a focused, global preoccupation with the pivotal moments of the solar and lunar cycles, the hinges of the cosmic year. Beyond the alignments, a deeper mathematical grammar repeats itself. The constant pi appears in the proportions of the Great Pyramid. The golden ratio phi structures temples from Giza to Greece. Pythagorean triangles uphold walls in the Andes. These are not decorative choices. They are fundamental constants of our universe, relationships describing harmony, growth, and proportion. The builders, whether through intuition or calculation, were embedding these universal principles into their monuments, suggesting they saw a direct link between cosmic order and mathematical truth. Furthermore, these sites were rarely isolated. They were almost always integrated into a larger sacred geography, whether it was the sec lines of Cusco, the lunar solar complex of Orkney, or the vast geoglyphic canvas of Nazca. Each monument was a single note in a much grander landscape symphony. So what does this astonishing convergence mean? The easiest answer, and one often leapt to, is that of a single, lost super-civilization, a common teacher for all humanity. Yet the evidence resists this simple tale. The diversity of form is simply too great. The serene circles of northern Europe, the angular pyramids of Egypt and Mesoamerica, the sprawling stone lines of Karnak, the subterranean resonance chambers of Malta, these are distinct cultural voices, unique artistic and architectural expressions born of different environments, different materials, and different mythologies. They are not carbon copies. This points us toward a more profound and perhaps more beautiful explanation. We may be witnessing a shared stage in the development of the human mind itself. As our ancestors transitioned from nomadic life to settled communities, from simply surviving to observing, a cognitive threshold was crossed. The relentless, patient observation of nature, the sun's path, the moon's phases, the predictable return of the seasons slowly crystallized into abstract thought. They began to see patterns, and then they began to quantify those patterns. The movement of a star became a number, the cycle of a season became a calendar, the harmony of a form became a ratio. This was the birth of true mathematics and astronomy, not as separate sciences, but as a unified understanding of a patterned universe. And once that understanding dawned, the human impulse to ritualize it, to make it permanent and sacred, became irresistible. What better way to honor the cosmic order than to build it into the very fabric of your world, in the most enduring material you knew? Stone became the parchment, and celestial mechanics became the text. This, then, is the foundational chapter being revealed. The global pattern of megalithic sites is not evidence of a single source, but of a shared cognitive awakening. It is the story of humanity in scattered corners of the globe, independently learning to read the same sky and, in their own unique cultural dialects, writing down what they learned. They were answering a deep, universal need to find our place in the vastness, to build meaning from the cycles of time, and to anchor our fleeting lives to something eternal and orderly. The silent dialogue between earth and sky, encoded in these 25 sites and countless others, is one of the earliest and most eloquent expressions of human intelligence reaching for the stars. It is not our ending, but our magnificent beginning. These silent stone libraries scattered across our world ask us to reconsider a fundamental story we tell about ourselves. For centuries, the dominant narrative of human history has been one of linear progress, a slow climb from simple superstition toward rational science. We imagine our ancestors as primitive figures struggling for survival, their minds clouded by myth. Yet the mathematical precision etched into these 25 sites, and hundreds more like them, presents a powerful counter-argument. It suggests that deep scientific intuition, a profound grasp of geometry, astronomy, and engineering, was not the end point of civilization, but perhaps its very catalyst. Long before formal equations were written on parchment, they were being worked out in the placement of multi-ton stones under an open sky. This was not science as we define it in a laboratory, but as an integrated way of seeing, a holistic understanding that wove together the empirical observation of celestial cycles with the spiritual need for meaning and place. They possessed a knowledge that was both practical and sacred, a duality our modern world often struggles to reconcile. Their legacy challenges us to expand our definition of intelligence and achievement, to see in these cosmic mirrors not the crude beginnings of thought, but a sophisticated, alternative expression of the human mind's capacity to decode the universe. Today, we continue this ancient quest with different tools but the same essential drive. We no longer build stone circles to track solstices. We launch satellites into orbit and point telescopes at the edge of the observable universe. Our maps are digital, our calculations are performed by silicon, yet the fundamental questions remain strikingly similar. We are still trying to understand our place within a grand cosmic design, to find the underlying mathematical order that governs everything from the orbit of planets to the structure of atoms. The James Webb Space Telescope peers back in time to the dawn of galaxies, while particle colliders seek the basic rules of matter. In a profound sense, these are our megaliths. They are our culture's most ambitious attempts to build monuments that converse with the cosmos, to receive signals from the deep past and translate them into human understanding. The thread connecting the astronomer at Stonehenge watching the moon's slow dance and the scientist at a console analyzing data from a deep space probe is unbroken. It is the thread of curiosity, the relentless need to look up and ask, what does this mean and where do we fit in? This shared pattern across continents and millennia speaks to a profound interconnectedness in the human experience. While these cultures likely developed their knowledge independently, their convergent solutions point to a universal grammar of discovery. Faced with the same sky, the same need to mark time, and the same awe at the celestial order, human minds in isolation arrived at similar architectural and mathematical principles. This is not evidence of a single lost teacher, but of a shared cognitive heritage. It reveals that the capacity to recognize pattern, to seek harmony, and to monumentalize understanding is woven into the fabric of what it means to be human. In an age often focused on our differences, these ancient sites remind us of a deep, common root. They are a whisper from our collective past, affirming that the drive to build meaning, to anchor our lives to something larger and more enduring than ourselves, is a story we have all been writing together in stone and starlight for thousands of years. If this journey through time and the language of the cosmos has resonated with you, consider subscribing for more explorations into history's greatest enigmas. We would love to hear which of these celestial mirrors left the deepest impression on you. Was it the solar chariot of Karnak, the resonant chamber in Malta, or the silent, submerged mystery of Yonaguni? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let us continue the conversation about our timeless conversation with the stars.